Hello everybody, welcome back. Tropical Update number 39. It's currently 11:30 Eastern, 10:30 Central. Tropical Storm Grace now, with winds of 70 miles an hour located inland over Mexico. We'll begin with that storm, then move on to Henri. Henri now a Category 1 hurricane making its way towards Long Island and the rest of New England. So let's again begin with Grace. We only have one slide on Grace today. Grace made landfall last night as a high-end Category 3 major hurricane. We're talking winds of 125 with this storm. It rapidly intensified right before landfall. As we can see now, it's dissipating out rather quickly. The convection dropping due to it producing heavy rainfall over the area in excess of 1 foot of rain. Tropical storm warnings remain in effect for mainland Mexico from Puerto Veracruz to Barra del Tordo, as it has been for quite some time. Of course, there's hurricane warnings being changed to a tropical storm warning with Grace weakening. Grace will continue to weaken and its remnants could reform in the eastern Pacific. It will not have the same name because the low-level center will not remain intact. However, there is an 80% chance of that happening. The next partial advisory from the Hurricane Center will be at 1 Central, next full advisory at 4 Central. Let's move on to Henri. Henri, as we can clearly see, is not the most well-defined storm we've ever seen. It has a good structure in terms of serious outflow with it, but it doesn't have good structure in terms of where the center of the storm is. The center is still a little displaced from the main convection. It's not in the center of the convection, and that's really going to prohibit Henri from strengthening too much before or as it crosses the Gulf Stream, where very warm sea surface temperatures will allow Henri to strengthen potentially up to a low-end Category 2, probably just remaining a Category 1, perhaps a bit stronger in the Category 1, but it will prohibit Henri from strengthening too much. A hurricane warning is in effect for Long Island, from Fire Island Inlet on the south coast to Port Jefferson Harbor on the north coast, and again from New Haven, Connecticut to Westport, Massachusetts, including Block Island. Tropical storm warning in effect from Port Jefferson Harbor on the north coast of Long Island to New Haven, Connecticut. It's kind of the area that gets cut out by the hurricane warning. Again, like I said, we get about 2/3 of Long Island in that hurricane warning. And the remainder is tropical storm warnings, including, again, from Fire Island Inlet on the south coast of Long Island all the way down to Manasquan Inlet on New Jersey. That includes New York City. New York City is under a tropical storm warning due to Henri. In addition, Westport, Massachusetts to Chatham, Massachusetts, including Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket, is under a tropical storm warning. Storm surge watches and warnings are also in effect. We'll talk about that here in a second. The next full advisory will be from the Hurricane Center at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. These times are incorrect on here. Then the next partial advisory at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So again, those times are incorrect in the wrong order, but I just told them to you correctly out loud. As we can see, Henri will be making its way towards New Island and then Connecticut in terms of landfall points, but effects will extend well outside of the cone, and that's why we show you this tropical storm force windfall arrival. Wind arrival times. And again, that's going to be Sunday morning when it begins to affect the Atlantic coast of New England. And again, that the odds go out as you go away from the center of the cone, but I would say anywhere in that yellow area could expect tropical storm force winds to at least some extent. And so anywhere from New Jersey into New York, including, of course, New York City, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, all certainly in play with tropical storm force winds due to Henri. Rainfall is also going to be concerned, 3 to 6, isolated 10 from Long Island, New England, southeastern New York, and northern New Jersey. So decently large area going to be affected by this. Long Island, portions of New York and Connecticut, probably the biggest, hardest hit areas, in my opinion, in terms of rain. New Jersey certainly not out of the question in terms of impacts. Again, no Sandy, but it is going to be a decent impact storm. We can see our watches and warnings right there again on the screen but I want to bring our attention to the storm surge watches and warnings in effect with this. Storm surge possible everywhere from Massachusetts all the way down to New Jersey, including, of course, New York, New York City, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and the entirety of the coast of Massachusetts. 3 to 5 feet of storm surge and a storm surge warning in effect from Mastic Beach on the south coast of Long Island to Chatham, Massachusetts, and that includes everywhere in between. We're talking the north coast of Long Island, Flushing, New York, the entire coast of Connecticut, the Long Island Sound, the entire coast of Rhode Island, Narragansett Bay, Buzzards Bay, Nantucket Sound, Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, Vineyard Sound, you name it, those areas under a storm surge warning, Block Island, all of those areas, 3 to 5 feet of storm surge. 2 to 4 feet of storm surge is possible from Mastic Beach to East Rockaway Inlet on the south coast of Long Island, and a storm surge watch in effect there. Again, 2 to 4 feet. 2 to 4 feet also from Chatham, Massachusetts to Sagamore Beach, Massachusetts, including Cape Cod Bay. Again, 2 to 4 feet of storm surge and a storm surge watch in effect there. 1 to 3 feet from the Merrimack River down to Sagamore Beach, Massachusetts. 1 to 3 feet from East Rockaway Inlet down to Cape May, New Jersey. That includes New York City on that one. So that's our storm surge. Of course, storm surge always a big concern with these tropical cyclones. Let's move on to the H-Wharf. H-Wharf brings Henri up to a decent strength before making landfall. I believe it has it at 80 knots, so 90 miles an hour. Certainly much stronger than it is right now, but it won't really matter as we see it begins to weaken before it even makes landfall. Again, that's due to some cold water temperatures off the coast, and Henri slowing down will allow it to weaken somewhat. As we see, though, that green tropical storm force wind field increases a decent amount as it begins to weaken, at least compared to like now. I mean, it will expand somewhat, and then so again, anywhere like I mentioned earlier in that yellow area, parts of New Jersey, parts of New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, parts of Vermont and New Hampshire, certainly going to be on the lookout for tropical storm force winds with Henri. As we can see on this next slide, we have a range of possibilities still of the landfall point. Again, anywhere from New York City to Cape Cod remain in play, but it's beginning to look more and more likely like we're going to have a landfall along Long Island, and then again in Connecticut is most likely scenario at this point in time, assuming, of course, Henri doesn't get too strong. If Henri gets strong, like we've been saying, it'll hook into New York City. If it stays weak or gets weak for some reason, then it's more likely to head out to Cape Cod. At this point is our forecast. We can really see that here on the spaghetti models. Again, we still have 2 sets of general line of thought here. One is Long Island and then into the Connecticut-New York border, and the other is scraping Long Island and then heading into Rhode Island instead. The National Hurricane Center currently splits the middle of that, of those 2 schools of thought. That's that black line kind of in the middle of those 2 clusters, hitting Long Island and then moving onshore onto Connecticut. As we see from the intensity guidance, nobody really... the model support for a hurricane has been decreasing, and now that Henri is a hurricane, we'll see the models respond in turn, and then from there we can see where exactly Henri's peak strength might be. Certainly 75 knots, that is an 85 mile an hour hurricane, is not out of the question with Henri, so we'll continue to monitor for that. Again, it's going to weaken before it makes landfall. It might weaken back to a tropical storm before landfall, but nonetheless will remain a strong tropical storm. We'll have another update out tonight, again tomorrow, and then continuing on into Monday. We'll do Monday if Henri still poses a big threat, but we'll see. Or if our upcoming areas of interest begin to become more interesting. Again, we're watching 2 areas at the moment. One is a wave off the coast of Africa with a 20% chance of formation in the next 5 days. That's going to be making its way out to sea. No threat to land with that one. But in about 7 to 10 days from now, we're going to be watching the Gulf of Mexico, parts of the Western Caribbean Sea very, very carefully for potential development there. Again, tropical updates continue throughout the summer. Stay safe and be sure to prepare for this hurricane if you're along the New England coastline that have those watches and warnings in effect. That's it for now. Chris Hickson for their Catholic Media.